Today's guest is Jennifer Lopez. Jennifer started her own podcast agency, a business that gets guests booked on podcasts. She teaches us not only about taking a bold leap into a specific niche market, but also about podcasting. This talk is for the podcast obsessed, whether you've been craving starting your own podcast or using an agency to get yourself on podcasts. If audio content feels like the right fit for you, then this episode will click. Hi, I'm Erin Power.
And I'm Laura Rupsis.
We're certified health coaches, and this is Health Coach Radio.
This podcast is about the art, science, and business of health coaching.
We share our insider tips to help you become a better coach and entrepreneur.
And we interview expert guests to discover how they've made it in this growing field.
It's time for health coaches to make an impact.
It's time for Health Coach Radio. All right, Jenny Lopez, how are you today?
Hey, I'm doing amazing. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, we've never really had a guest like you on Health Coach Radio before. That's like an expert in podcasting and helps people develop and build a podcast. So we're excited to pick your brain. I know. So
I'm the first. Thank you.
Yeah, right. First one, really. So let's dive in first a little bit about who you are.
Yeah, definitely. So I started my podcast agency when I was around 19. I moved out of my parents' house. I was in pursuit of independence. And then all of a sudden I found myself working like 16-hour days, So I was overworking, and then all of a sudden I had a huge accident. And I think that was just the eye-opening moment, that, I'm 19, I have so much more to give. And I love listening to people talk, it's really inspiring for me. So that just basically led to me starting an agency at 19.
Wow, that was the world's shortest intro. Well done. You're professional.
Thank you.
Okay. So just to summarize, you love listening to people talk. You had this sort of awakening and decided that this is what you wanted to do. So working, but what's interesting is that you decided you wanted to support the business or the practice of podcasting rather than starting your own, really. So you wanted to get into the podcasting industry writ large kind of thing. And
definitely.
Starting a podcasting agency. So why did you want to start a podcasting agency? What was the feeling or the why there?
Let's keep in mind, I was young. I was 19. I'm 21 now. When I was 15 or 18, all I would do was listen to podcasts, podcasts about mental health, about business, about entrepreneurship, weight loss, everything I would listen and learn from podcasts. So they were always really inspiring for me. And I just wanted to the interviews are amazing. There's some interviews that are life-changing, motivational, and I love that. So I just wanted to help people get their voice out there because it really helped me, it helped me a lot. So that's basically why I started that. And then apart from that, me starting was just me sitting in a room for 2 weeks, investigating ways to make money online because I had just crashed my car, and I had some savings. And then I just came across podcasting. And then I just found a way to make money online podcasting, And as opposed to me speaking, I feel I'm not there yet because I still have a lot of anxiety, I guess you can say. So props to you ladies for actually being a host, But yeah, that's a little.
Okay. Take us through a little bit about that sort of aha moment and how did you start your own little fledgling business in terms of a podcast agency? What did you know about being a podcast agency, if anything? How did you build it? How did you acquire your clients at this, so take us through that process.
Yeah, definitely. So as far as me knowing, all I knew was I like podcasts, that was it. I had basically from this car crash, they gave me back the money and that was enough to sustain myself for 6 months. So I really cut down all my expenses and I just started looking into the industry. From there, I came across 3 ways to actually be in the podcast niche. And then from there, I just started taking courses. And then just opened up the agency, and it was a struggle. The first 3 months, I had no clients. I was just struggling all in, no income. After those 3 months, I finally hit a client and that was the best thing ever, My first paycheck online, it was really, really good. And then from there, I just think it just started scaling up. I started getting more clients. I started taking more courses. Learning is key, especially in the podcast industry. I mean, in life in general. So I just started learning more, getting more. Courses are huge for me. So listening to podcasts, getting courses, learning, and taking action. Because if you don't take action, then what's the point? I know so many people who take so many courses but never take the action. So yeah, I just started taking action and it just started scaling. I believe in God. So I think that was a huge part as well. Just this like deniable faith that if something happened to me, it was for something.
But so how did you come across this first client? How did you get that first client? Because getting the first client,
that's the hardest
for any entrepreneur is the hardest. It almost feels like it's never going to happen. And then it happens. And I always wish people would remember when they got the first client. I remember my first client.
For me, it was just, I was pitching. What the course I bought taught me was to pitch people, so it was through cold email. At that time, I had no idea that was like what that was. I was just following the steps, I'm like, if someone else had those same results, like I know it can be done. It's just a time of like, how much effort am I willing to put in? So I was just sending like cold emails, and then I had 3 meetings prior to that. But the thing was, I sucked at closing meetings, at closing sales calls. I was just so bad. I had anxiety. I was just like, I'm so young. Like, why are you even here? So I was doubting myself. So it was really, really hard. But with this client, it wasn't like a Zoom call. It was my first phone call with her assistant. So I think that made everything much more like easier on my end. I'm like, oh, I don't really have to talk to her. I have to talk to the assistant, and it's a phone call, not a Zoom call. So then that happened. And then they said they really liked what I did. And then a week later, it was a thing, and then from there, she was my first client. She is one of my biggest clients till now, as opposed to like followers, audience. And apart from that, she kept scaling, we started off as podcast bookings. I would book her on other podcasts. And then multiple times a month. Then she wanted more podcast bookings. Then she wanted to start her own podcast. So I launched her podcast. Then she wanted podcast management. So with her, it was like every new service I had, it was scaling with her. And that just gave me the confidence I needed. And yeah, it was a blessing. It is a blessing.
This just totally mirrors the path of any health coach that goes to business too, by the way. Kind of what you're speaking to is exactly for health coaches that have been in the trenches for a long time will say the same thing. My first client was the hardest. This whole like taking courses to get better at what you suck at is enormous, because we have so many health coaches that just take course after course, but they never do anything. So how do you know if you suck at anything until you've gone out there and tried to do it first and realize, oh, you know what, I'm pretty good at that, but I could really use more help with this. Right. And being selective about where you invest. And also the other piece I heard, and I saw Aaron's eyes light up too, about how as your business scaled with your first clients, right, you were able to actually build your business and your process around what your first client needed. That what your first client needed is what informed how you built your business. Right.
Right. You started with that one thing. Mm-hmm. You specialized in one thing. I'm going to help people get on podcasts, and you doubled down on that. And then it had the legs, it had sort of the momentum to grow. You could grow because now you're in the podcasting industry, right? My favorite part of that story is that the first few clients you didn't land, and it sucked, and you felt like you sucked. And you had all this self-talk about, I'm not good at closing sales. And so many people would throw in the towel right in that moment.
Oh yeah,
exactly.
And you got that first client. Now look at you.
Oh, thank you. What a blessing. And it takes time. It was like 3 months in. I was just like, oh my God, what am I going to do? I have 3 months left because I had 6 months. I burned all the bridges, I crashed my car. I had no job. It was either like something has to happen. Like it has to work. So, yeah, I couldn't quit. And now I'm here talking to you ladies, and that's a blessing. So thank you.
Oh my gosh. I love it. And health coaches listening, I know coaches who it's been like a couple of years and you still haven't done anything. You got your first certification. Maybe you put up a website. Usually you don't. And you just kind of throw out a couple of feelers, and the first couple of like, oh, that's nice. How are the kids, right? The first indication that no one's interested in what you're talking about, you get discouraged and you throw in the towel. I think landing your first client within the first 3 months is actually pretty great.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Like right now, I just hit a year not too long ago, like 2 months ago. And it was just me realizing that, I was so hard on myself. I was like, oh my God, but then I realized I just turned 21. 3 months is actually good. I met a lot of entrepreneurs who are like how you said, like in the health industry, 3 years have passed a few years and they don't take action. And they don't, there's a lot of people who don't. So just me realizing that was just a big eye-opening moment.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, congrats. It's fun to look back when you've had a year under your belt of this thing that you created from scratch, and it's actually something. And
exactly.
Again, I go back to, I think it's so important for all of us to remember those early stages. I will say that till I'm blue in the face. Remember the times you toiled before you had anything to show for it. It's frustrating in the moment, but it's really, really rewarding and fun to look back on it. Anyhow.
Yeah.
I like that. I love that.
Yeah, we have a few health coaches that have their own podcasts. There's two that come to mind in particular that are in the UK that have their own like little keto podcast.
Oh, that's amazing.
Talking to them, I was interviewed on one of their podcasts that's going to go live, but she was saying even just their podcast isn't a huge moneymaker for them, but it creates value for their end clients so that they can grow their coaching business.
Exactly.
So there's multiple ways you can use podcasting as a way to kind of either add a revenue source if you've got people that want to advertise, right? Or people that pay to be on there or what have you, but also just, rather than a blog or a newsletter or social media, your platform is podcasting.
Exactly. To connect with your audience.
Yeah. So you took the first course you took was how to pitch an email. What other courses did you take? Were they podcast specific courses? Were they business related courses?
Yeah, definitely. The first course I took, apart from that one, was just a podcast agency course. So how to start a podcast agency, which was just basically being an agent and pitching people on other podcasts. And then from there, I've taken like so many courses, on mental health, on podcasting in general, business, entrepreneurship, everything, spiritual courses, like everything you can think of. I love taking courses. I have like all the memberships everywhere. And I just love that. One thing you said that really caught my eye was starting your podcast. I would love to know why you guys started the podcast.
Industry-wise, there wasn't really anything at the time. We've been on the air for 4 years now.
Oh, that's amazing. Congrats.
Yeah. We've published every week for 4 years. That blows my mind because Laura and I have one or two other things on our to-do list. So
yeah, most podcasts fail because they're not consistent. That's right. The number one reason. So props to you.
Somebody ran a report, somebody that we know who's a pretty avid podcaster was able to access a report. Maybe you can speak to this a little bit, but said that we are one of the top, 5%?
Yes.
Of podcasts in the whole podcast space, but it's simply because we have published
are consistent. Exactly.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But we were filling a gap, an informational gap in the honestly in the info sphere. It was like health coaches are out there. Like health coaching was a pretty fledgling-ish up and coming career path, and because we work for a school that certifies health coaches, we were seeing people coming in being very curious about health coaching, being excited about it, but like not really understanding it. So we thought this industry needs a voice. So that's why we started Health Coach Radio, to be a voice for the health coaching industry.
Yeah. And also to just sort of walk the talk. I mean, we tell our clients that the best way to actually attract, our students, the people that want to be health coaches, the best way to attract your target audience is to create value for them.
Exactly.
Right? And to put great content out there that will support your audience. And when they begin to trust you and begin to really hear, hey, Aaron and Laura know what they're talking about, or they get the right guests on because they know what I need to know as a health coach. And so from that standpoint, it's, walk the talk. We're putting content out there to attract people that want to be health coaches or health coaches that want to further their knowledge and think, wow, Primal Health Coach Institute must be knowledgeable in this area and I trust them. So this is a big part of what we teach in our business development curriculum related to our health coaching certification is quote unquote how to find clients. One of those areas is to be findable and become a content expert and trusted resource for your clients. And we wanted to model that. And to Aaron's point, there really was nothing out there at the time. And voila, 4 years later, we're here.
That's crazy. And then another great thing is monetizing your podcast apart from like sponsorships. This is another great example. You put amazing content, you get the audience to be engaged, and then they just funnel in. That's another amazing way to actually like monetize and like indirectly without sponsors or advertisements. And you guys are doing that. So that's amazing.
I like that you brought that forward. That's a good point, because I think sometimes I think as entrepreneurs, we can get a little overly simplistic or literal, maybe. So if somebody thinks, how do I monetize my podcast? How do I monetize my blog even? Or how do I monetize my YouTube channel? It's like there are literal monetization strategies you can do with sponsorships and running ads. And let's not also forget the monetization. I'm using heavy air quotes if you're listening.
Exactly.
of putting information out that establishes you as a leader in your space, so people want to work with you and pay you money to do the thing that you do.
Exactly. Like, and authority.
Authority, 100%. Yeah.
Definitely.
So tell us, so you sent out some emails, you bombed on your first couple sales calls, you finally landed one, and you've grown with her. So tell us a little bit about sort of how that has grown from there. Tell us a little bit now about how you find clients, but we do want to pick your brain in terms of getting a podcast up and running. I mean, Aaron and I can kind of sort of speak to how we did ours, but to be fair, we had a lot of background help, a lot of kind of technical help in the background.
Oh, that's amazing.
But most people don't, right?
No.
Most people have to do that on their own. So, so tell us a little bit about kind of landing those next couple clients, but then also at this juncture, what does your agency do? And we would love for you to share some best practices on getting started and then either monetizing or growing.
Okay, perfect. So I started off just booking people on other podcast guests so they can establish authority and just build credibility. And then from there, I landed this other client. At this point, I landed a really good client. She had like over 1 million followers, which really helped me leverage that. And then from there, because of her, we ended up getting a sponsorship, a partnership with the Great American Summit, a summit that was happening in January in Texas. So they asked us to be sponsors. And then all our branding was at this event. It was an amazing event. And all we had to do was I had to get them on her podcast, which was like a no-brainer, And then she got a lot of benefits. I got a lot of benefits. And the next thing you know, we were in Texas. Everything was paid for. It was VIP dinner. Everything was amazing. And I think that was like my first event, let's say 3 months after starting that just opened my eyes like, oh, wow, I just started this. It was like I was like 5 months in and this is an amazing opportunity. So from there, that was really eye-opening as well. And then I started doing podcast launching. So just a done for you podcast service where all you have to do is press record. Sometimes you don't even have to press record. There's this amazing platform called Riverside where I even press record, and that's pretty much it. You just sit there, I press record, that's all you have to do. And then boom, you're done. I do the rest. We launch it, we edit it, we do audiograms, we do the email, guest correspondence, everything, all the minor details are done for you. It's a completely done for you service. Apart from that, we also have podcast consulting, which is basically I audit your podcast. We tell you based on your goal is what we give, Sometimes people just want to grow your audience. Sometimes they want to monetize, and that's valid. Depending on the goal, that's what you give. Apart from that, we still do podcast guesting, obviously, and anything podcast related, podcast management, audiograms, all the little tiny details we do as well. All of our services are done for you, which is something I love. A lot of podcasting takes time. You ladies aren't going to let me lie. It's a lot of like behind the scenes work. And we got that all covered. Okay. I hope that answered your question a little.
It definitely did. And it cranked up some follow-up questions or feelings, I should say, feelings. So you mentioned Riverside. I started a podcast called using Anchor. Same kind of, I think, similar. It's a podcast and posting. Anyways, makes it very, very simple to set it up and push it to the various platforms, iTunes and Spotify. If anybody's out there searching for my podcast, you can stop searching because I have not posted a single episode.
No.
But here's why. Okay, I pulled up this note on my phone. It says podcast / content ideas. I'm not going to show it to you, but it's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of bullet points of things I've jotted down to talk about in either in a podcast or whatever. But standing here in my office with my microphone without Laura and a guest to kind of have a conversation with, me just talking into this microphone about the topic, I just can't. It's like I need prompts. I need some kind of, I don't know what it is. So my question, I guess, is how many of your podcasts or percentage roughly are people just monologue style talking into a microphone, right? Versus guests? Because I wanted my podcast to be monologue style.
Definitely.
And then of those monologue style informational podcasts, do you help people organize what they're going to talk about? Or is that left to them? Because they're they're kind of the thought leader in their space.
No, I actually help with that.
Okay.
Yeah, because the problem with that is, let's say you know what you want to do, but you're having issues. Maybe you're having issues because you're not planning it out. A lot of people who do like solo based podcasts, they have like a strict planning out, they know what they're talking about. And I usually recommend these episodes to be between 10 to 20 minutes, or at least to start out being short. And then you could, once you start getting confident, you could obviously extend. But the thing here is to start, let's say you had started, you would already have 5 episodes. You would have grown 5 episodes, Yeah. So it's all about planning. It's about planning what you want to talk about, having a sequence of like what the end goal is. And then from there, we could basically like together just see, okay, this is the value I want to provide. And these are 5 baby steps you can take. Okay, cool. Now you can split those 5 baby steps into 1 episode each, or just put all of those 5s into 1 episode, really short, and then add on from there. There's like, podcasting is so unique, which is the thing I love about it. There's no wrong way. There's people doing 2-hour interviews. There's people doing like 5-minute solo episodes, and both are amazing.
Yeah, I don't like the short ones. I like long ones. But you're right. Like at this point, the only thing in my way, and hopefully other people listening, is me. I've become my own bottleneck, because it's like, if I think I'm going to pull up one of these topics, okay, I'm going to spin the wheel and pull up one topic and say, okay, I'm going to talk about that. Turn on the microphone, let's go. And I'm just going to riff, and it's going to come out in some meaningful way that doesn't require 8 hours of editing. Forget it. Like, there has to be some intentionality behind it. And I'm certain there's a lot of people listening who, like me, thought that it was going to be real easy to just flick on the microphone and talk. And it's actually majorly hard, which is why I have no episodes, despite having hundreds of ideas. So I like this idea. Like, just take a minute to jot down a structure, right? I'm going to start with this. The end goal I want to get to is this. Here's kind of what happens in the middle. That alone, that wouldn't even take a long time, I don't think.
Yes. Or a mere podcast you like, take the time, listen to 3 podcasts, take a look at their structure. All podcasts have a structure. Sometimes it's like intro, then like the main topic, outro. Sometimes it's just them actually reading the research behind it, So just take a look, mirror podcast, and then from there, write down everything you liked, what you didn't like, and then boom, get started, Listen to the recording. If you didn't like it, that's amazing. Don't publish it, redo it until you like it. Obviously, don't redo it 100 times. Keep it in like the 5 redo range, and then boom, you have a podcast episode.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, Erin, I'm like you. I can't riff either. I go off on a total tangent, or it's like too much information. Like, my end client doesn't care about that. Just to keep it simple. I even tried just the bullet points, but then I go off on a tangent on the bullet points, and I have to like wind myself back in. So I really do have to, if I want to keep it within a certain time range, I kind of have to script it out.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Record that script once and be like, I don't like the way that sounded, and I'll adjust it, and then go through and do it again. And I'm not speaking in terms of podcasts. I'm just speaking in terms of some of the video ads that we've had to do, where I'm trying to hit highlights in a way that's effective but brief. You get the big one. So with the podcast format, you're actually delivering more detail. So they need to be longer. But here's the thing with like health and wellness, nutrition, fitness, all of this is nuanced. And all of this stuff is it's very rare that something is a black and white, right or wrong kind of thing. Everything is so nuanced from person to person. And Erin and I talk about this all the time. A client will ask a question, and I rarely just answer it the first time. I always ask another question. Why are you asking? What's the context under which you're asking this question? Here's a big one that comes up, Erin. Like, what do you think about whey protein? Okay. Because a lot of my clients, I'm trying to help them learn to consume, add more protein to their day. And so they're looking for a shortcut. They're looking for an easy way, something that they enjoy the taste of that, And so this is me being like, all right, well, let's talk about whey protein. Why are you asking? How are you planning to use this? Are we talking like three shakes a day and you're not eating food? Are you talking just something coming out of the gym? Like, what's the context of this? So to just do a podcast on whey protein, you could go like a million different directions about that. The next thing you know, it's a half an hour.
Okay.
Yes. And I have a question about whey protein now.
Perfect. Well, Laura, I was going to say that, so first of all, my clients aren't asking about whey, they're asking about wine.
Oh, okay.
And the answer is the same. The answer is the same. Well, it depends. When I first met Erica, she was a skilled health coach who couldn't seem to make the leap from her 9-to-5 job to a full-time coaching business. She was struggling to find clients and to identify what made her unique as a coach. Well, I've met tons of health coaches in that exact predicament, which is why I partnered with Primal Health Coach Institute to develop the Launch Your Coaching Business program. This course is specifically designed to help you hone your niche and graduate with a sure-to-sell product. Erica enrolled and created an awesome specialty program that brought in so many clients and so much passive income that she was eventually able to tiptoe into full-time health coaching. This course includes 12 weeks of live hands-on workshops with me, Primal Health Coach Institute Coaching Director Erin Power, and my co-teacher, best-selling author and coach Liana Werner-Gray. It also includes an online course that helps you get clear on your specialty, know exactly what your client wants and needs, and then create a program to meet those needs. Then comes the practical how-to for getting that product out into the world and into the hands of the people who need it and who need you. We keep the class small so you get the high-touch support and guidance you need to get your product to market fast. If you are ready to get your health coaching business off the ground, visit primalhealthcoach.com to learn more about the Launch Your Coaching Business course. Here's a thought. So folks like us who have a lot to say, and Laura made this point, maybe it makes sense to write it out almost like a blog post. So now you have a blog post about whey protein or wine. So you could post that to your blog. You could also then I'm just spitballing here and I'd love to know your thoughts, Jenny, because you're the pro. You can get a teleprompter app and you can recite that blog post onto video, put that on your YouTube channel. It could become a podcast. You can have little audiograms for your Instagram if you'd like.
Yes, repurpose content is key.
Yeah. What do you think about people who do that though? Like every now and then I'll listen to a podcast and I can tell the person is reading. And
I think, just like the key points, let's say let's say wine. Let's say you just want to talk about wine. Just put that as the main idea, not like everything like detail to detail, word to word, but just the main topics. So you know what you want to talk about. You can read it, see it, but you don't get off track, So let's say you start talking, you live wine, you get off board, now we're in Italy talking about this flashback. Then you look at your screen and you're like, oh, okay, that has nothing to do with that. I'll take it back. And then you stay on track. You have the schedule, you're following all of this, and that makes it easier. You don't exactly have to read off it, but now you know what you want to talk about, what you want to deliver. And every time you go off track, that's totally fine. You just take it back. And that would just make everything flow easier. And then the purposing content is amazing, or you could create the actual podcast episode. And then from there, the show notes you could add to your blog. And then the actual video you could add to YouTube. And that's another way to repurpose it. Also, another thing I would recommend would be guest interviews. You get put in front of a whole new audience. Now this whole new audience is interested in what you do, and you take that audience with you. So that's another amazing way to actually promote what you do.
Yeah, I think that repurposing sort of story that we just shared there actually makes it sound. First of all, it makes it sound easier. Weirdly, it makes it sound easier. But you get all this content for all these different platforms.
Yes, for days.
Right. You could do one thing on this content. You could repurpose that every day in your social feeds or whatever. It makes it sound easier. You get more out of it. Also, what I really like about it is, this is going to sound super goofy, but I'm just going with it. But it feels like this is my job. My job is to create content, and record myself, talking it up. My job is to put this content out there in 3 or 4 different platforms, 3 or 4 different mediums. That's my job. And I'm getting
Hell
more
yeah.
I'm getting more staunch in terms of entrepreneurs, health coaches specifically, treating this like a job with
Yes.
with tasks that you have to do.
Exactly.
And
And
putting
then
content
it's
out is an important
easy.
task.
And then there's so many like platforms right now that help you. There's this thing called Headliner. I don't know if you guys are aware of it. It's this amazing platform that creates audiograms for you, you know? So there, like sometimes there's so many platforms you can actually leverage that will help you repurpose this like piece of content, you know? There's also IOs that help you transcribe everything. You could go to Upwork for show notes, or like I know you make them right now, but like that's amazing as well, you know? The show notes can now be a blog post. You could add links and monetize that way through affiliate links. There's like so many ways you can actually repurpose and connect everything with podcasting, and that's amazing. Just a lot of people still need to actually treat it like a job or like an actual work and take it seriously so they could see money flowing in or audience growth.
Mm-hmm. And they feel, you can feel more authentic. Like I know
Exactly.
what I'm doing.
Yes, like I'm an expert in this field.
So I would love okay. So we've got folks who are either curious about health coaching, aspiring health coaches, or perhaps health coaches are in the spot where they're really ready to grow. But we all have a budget as far as what we can spend on marketing, advertising, things of that nature. So if you were to bring on a new client who's got an established business, this is a health coach, graduated from a program, they've had clients under their belt, they've got a business, and now they're ready to podcast. From the standpoint, I'm sure this varies in terms of just how much help you're hiring for, but on average, what should someone looking to do this starting out kind of budget for in terms of costs to getting a podcast published? Because I got to imagine you got to pay for a platform. And then again, all of these things that you don't want to do that you might hire out for, what do you think on a monthly basis a coach should be prepared to invest into really getting this going?
Definitely. I would suggest they start off, if they haven't done podcasting at all, with podcast guesting. This just helps them be comfortable with actual people, different formats. If they want to be a host, now they've been on plenty of shows and they know like what host format they like, or like what hosts are doing that they can mirror. And then from here, that would roughly cost them. There's a lot of platforms. So it really depends, on the budget. If you have low budget, you could go on Facebook groups and actually like pitch yourself through there. There's a lot of like Facebook guesting groups. The problem with these is the audience size. So you have to be more, and the time, time is money. So you would have to spend a lot of time. But if you don't have the budget, I would recommend you starting with that in the podcast guesting field. If you have the budget, podcast booking, let's say with myself, costs $250 to $300 per booking. And if you do it paid up front, you get a discount. So if you have the budget, do that, all you have to do is, let's say you don't even have to do anything, you get the bookings directly to you. All you have to do is be on air, be ready to talk. And that's it. So yeah, that would be the second thing. If you have a budget, go with an expert, go with someone that can help you, that can guide you, that can tell you how to prioritize, how to actually take this content and make it a lead generator. That would be my second piece of advice in a way. If you've already done this, or you want to start a podcast, you could also, budget is the thing. Depending on your budget is the ways you can go. If you could definitely launch your own podcast for free. There's a lot of free courses. All you have to do is go to YouTube, go to like people who have courses. Lots of them are free. Download them and try to figure it out. Yes, you will spend. The only downside with this is time. You will spend a lot of time. There's a lot of like the feed and all of this like podcast setup and distributing it to the top major directories, which is a hassle. But if you're really on a budget, it could be done. If you have the budget, I would definitely suggest you just outsource it. It will save you time, money, energy, and you won't burn out. Because if you don't know how to do something, it will burn you out. And then that to the point where you don't even enjoy it. If you hire an expert, they already know what they're doing. They already have experience. All you have to do is press record. And even if you have like so many ideas, we'll help you see which one fits what your end goal is. If it's monetizing, we could go with this idea. If it's growing your audience, this one, depending on your goal is what you really need.
Yeah.
So yeah.
We talk all the time about, in order for you to grow any business, you need to invest something. It's
Exactly.
either some combination of time, money, and effort. So if
Boom.
you have a lot of time, invest the money. If you don't have the money, you have to invest the time. Both of those are going to require some degree of effort, right? Sort of built into that. And so it becomes kind of this sliding scale. You can dial one up with, and work your way towards it. But to your point, I mean, we know we have some of our own graduates who have built a tremendous following, and have monetized YouTube. She didn't spend a dime on it. She probably does now. She's much busier. But when she first started,
like a hobby.
Yeah, but the content that she was putting out there was content people were interested in hearing more about. And now she's been able to monetize it. So to your point, using whether it's Facebook or YouTube or some of these free platforms, in her case, she invested the time and the
exactly
in the beginning to get that up and running. And now she's in a position financially where, I mean, I can't speak for her, but if she wanted to actually outsource a lot of that stuff, she probably could.
Exactly. And some people don't want to, and that's fine. Some people enjoy the process of like editing, recording, doing the show notes, and that's amazing. And I'm glad they do. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. And if that's what you want to be as a content creator, that you want to be in the health and wellness and fitness space by creating content and somehow being able to monetize that content, then spending the time and the money and investing and getting that done professionally makes a lot of sense. But for those of us that want to actually coach humans, where this is just another form of outreach, then it's, I would imagine, sort of prioritizing where you spend your time and how you get
exactly. Definitely.
So you mentioned your second client or one of your early clients had this humongous following. And I guess my question is, it's sort of a long question. I'd love to just know your gut instinct on it, but that is for the new podcaster who has no following. So I'm gonna start a podcast, put it out there into the billions and billions of other podcasts that are already in that ocean, and I don't have a following. Are there tactics or ways, and do you work with your clients to do any kind of like, I don't know, are there ways to boost or promote or put ad dollars behind podcasts to get them in front of people? I have no idea how, like, for example, the Apple Podcast platform works. Like if I'm just scrolling through the Apple Podcast platform and it's suggesting a podcast to me, was there an ad spend behind that, or is that algorithmic, or like what? How's that happen?
Yes, the algorithm. But a thing with Apple Podcasts is they really take into consideration your show notes, the actual description, and the cover art picture. Cover art is really important. It speaks to you. We really do recommend it's updated every so often, and it's high quality, and it's really eye-catching, as well. The name is key. So everything just ties down to that. A good way to get so let's say scaling your podcast, if you have no audience, is really hard. That's why a lot of podcasters quit. And that's why there's this thing that a lot of podcasters fail, because they're inconsistent. They're inconsistent because they have no audience. And it's really hard to grow the audience, So that's why a number one reason why podcasters fail. And in order for you to grow your audience, you do have to spend a lot of time and maybe energy, money as well. A good way to spend ads is, so I wouldn't recommend you like do ads for your podcast. Let's say your show, like on your show, I wouldn't really recommend that. It would just be a waste of money. What you can do is guest on other people's show who already have a platform, leverage their platform. So let's say I'm guesting in your podcast, correct? Mm-hmm. I would suggest all of you guys, I would pay you ladies. I would ask you if you guys can run ads for me with your audience on the show we already did, if that made sense. So now you ladies are running ads to your audience with my face on it, and I'm paying for that on my end. So now I'm getting boosted to your audience, and I'm paying ads that way, and then I transfer that audience to myself, and I already established the connection with her audience. She's boosting me. Her audience already like trusts her, and it's a quick way to like convert people. So same thing, I would suggest everybody does podcast guesting. And then from there, that's a quick way to grow or get your name out there. And then from there, just leverage that audience of other people to boost your podcast, because podcasting is really difficult to grow. So as far as ads go, that's the way, or that's the go-to.
Interesting. I just listened to a podcast last week, and for the first time heard them advertising another podcast. That was the first time I'd ever heard that. So that's interesting. So,
or paying for shout outs as well, which is basically that.
Oh, I'll pay for shout outs. How much is a shout out? $5?
Like, I need a few of those.
But the other thing too is that I think one of the hidden messages in this is that, look, if you don't have a following, this goes for any content creation, by the way. If you don't have a following, you're going to toil over whether it's a blog post, an Instagram reel, a podcast episode, and no one's listening to it. But don't throw in the towel.
Exactly.
You still have to commit to doing this. And it's as boring as this advice is, it's the consistency that gets you the traction over time. I think too many people are waiting to like hit it big and become one of those YouTube celebrity 7-year-olds.
Yeah, and they give up right before.
Right. Oh, yeah. So it's like you have to decide you want to do it, and then you have to just do it. And that, I mean, that's such base level, that's just base level adult advice. That's adulting. You have to do things.
Exactly. And not look at the numbers. I recommend people to not even look at their podcast downloads the first month, Like, I don't have no podcast downloads. And then that just triggers them, and then they stop, And let's say
that's empowering. Yeah. It's like, oh, great. Nobody listened to that junk I put out. I'm a brand new podcast. Thank goodness nobody listened to it.
I hope everybody had that mindset. You don't know how many people I ran across that are like, no, I want to give up and throw it all away.
Oh my gosh. And so here's the thing though, our little podcast has been out for 4 years now. And
yes, that's why when I say congratulations, I'm like, yes.
They're just like, oh my God, I just discovered you a couple of months ago. And they're like kids in a candy store because there are so many episodes for them to go back and listen to now. So, I mean, I talked to someone on the phone. I guess it was last week, Erin, Friday, someone who's like, oh, I started with episode 1. I have so many to get through. She was gleefully excited to I know. The very first one was not our best episode. She's like, oh, I loved it. But she's going to listen to them all in order,
Yes, they're evergreen.
And then there's other people that looked at the descriptions and are cherry picking episodes based on the topics they're interested in. But we've got so much to choose from. They're like, hey, if I'm spending time in the car, I'm listening to you guys. I'm hearing that more and more now. But in the beginning, we didn't have, our only real listeners were our own students and graduates from our own, it's kind of like having your podcast and only your friends and family are listening to it,
And that's amazing too. You're feeding your audience as well.
I was thinking back to our first episode, and I think maybe it's worthwhile to suggest that it's not easy to do it, but you get better. And even our very first guest was a seasoned podcaster himself. Mm-hmm. And that was what he said after we clicked stop on the recording. He said, don't worry, guys, you're going to get better at this.
I love that. But the thing is, you guys have evergreen content now, Yeah. It's evergreen. 4 years have passed and they can still go back. Let's say you would have added an affiliate link to that. You would still have evergreen, revenue.
It is evergreen. You're completely right. And kind of go back to Laura's anecdote. There's a podcast that I just stumbled across in the last few months that I'm obsessed with. And this person's been, again, posting for years and years. So I literally have the filter set up on my podcast player, show me all unplayed episodes of this show, because I'm going to, on my dog walks, I'm playing the next one. I'm going back to episodes. It's so wild. I'm going back to episodes. It's still evergreen, but it's very wild to go back to episodes from April of 2020.
Oh, and,
wow. The color commentary.
Everything going out.
Right. It's like, wow, remember when that was all happening? But the content itself, irrespective of whatever situationally is happening, it all tracks. I still love it. I'm taking notes. I'm learning from it. I'm devouring it. I've said before, anything this person puts out, I will buy, because I have been immersed in their
trust.
Yeah.
Which is what's amazing about podcasts. You guys are in our ears while we're working out, while we're cooking, while we're doing all of these things. You start gaining this trust. That's an amazing, another thing. If you guys were to add affiliate links, you have now started with that. You've earned that trust. And like you said, your audience will now automatically buy that because they trust you. They spend so much time with you that you're not a podcast host. They're your friend, So yeah, it's like so beautiful.
Do you mean affiliate links like for products that I...
Yeah, not your products. It could be your products or like other products. Let's say you're like microphone. Let's say not like I'm just randomly stumble across and I mention it's amazing. And you happen to have an Amazon link, that's an affiliate link. So now just you saying that, you now have another source of income. And then let's say me just being your like number one fan, like you're my friend now, like you being a podcast host is literally you being my friend because you're in my ear so many times. Now you just have that trust and go purchase it.
So I might say in my podcast that I have this really great health gadget that I love. I got a 25% discount code for you in the show notes. That's my affiliate link.
Exactly.
Kind of
Exactly.
I never thought of that.
Yeah.
I don't know why I never thought of that. Literally podcasting is just blogging verbally.
Right.
Exactly. And then you can repurpose this like video to the blog. And then it's so many ways to actually get it out there.
So, I know we got to wrap up soon, but I would love for you to kind of give us a glimpse as to who's kind of really in a good position to start a podcast. So let's say I'm a health coach. At what point in a health coach's journey do you think podcasting is a smart investment in both time and money based on kind of where you are in terms of...
Definitely. So top reasons to start a podcast would be number one, because you want to, you know, if you want to, that's just like the best reason ever. You want to, you will have the time. You might not have the time, but you have the energy. It's something that's on the top of your mind. So go ahead and start it. Another reason is your audience is asking for it. Let's say you ladies, you guys are in the health industry. You mentioned having a gym, correct? If they want to know more about you, if they're asking all these questions, just make a podcast episode about it. And then every time they ask you, just send them over there. That would be number two. One, because you want to, your audience is asking for it. Three, because you want to build trust and establish authority. That's an amazing thing. You want to be known as the expert, and that's an amazing way to do it. Number four, you like interviewing. You like meeting new people and networking. Podcasts are a great way to network. I've met so many great entrepreneurs networking like this, you know. You got to meet them in person. This leads to a summit. That summit leads to something else, an in-person event, and it just skyrockets. So that would be another amazing event. So another amazing thing, my bad. It would just be, there's so many amazing reasons to start it. I can't really pick which ones. It just, if you feel it, go for it, you know. You could stay on a budget and you could go all out. Just whatever it is. The only one thing to do is be consistent. If you're not consistent, it's going to fail.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, what comes to mind for me is the sheer number of health coaches that are doing this as a side hustle right now. They've got clients. But they're still holding down a full-time job. So chances are they've got a little bit of a budget here to invest in something like this to see if this gives them the leverage they need to get to the point where now their side hustle is too busy and they're in a better position financially to then leave that job. This is just one example that comes to mind.
Exactly. Then I would recommend them to guest on other podcasts as opposed to like on their own podcast.
Okay.
If they have an audience already or following, then yes, go ahead and like launch your own podcast. Yeah. If not, if it's a side hustle and you're working your full-time job, I would just recommend going on other podcasts and being interviewed.
Well, and there's something to be said. So let's say this is the situation and I'm paying you a couple $100 to land me on a podcast once a month or every couple of weeks or what have you, right? So that's built into my marketing budget. Now I've got media, I'm saying that with heavy air quotes, links that I can now add to my webpage, right?
Definitely.
Find me and on my social media page. And then as my audience then builds either on social media or, email lists or whatever, it's at that point, then it makes sense to perhaps host your own.
Exactly. And you start ranking on Google search, because they usually add your name to it. And that's an amazing way to do it. And then from there, once you have that, you could launch it or you can go ahead and launch it as well. But I would always recommend you also do podcast guesting while launching or hosting a podcast.
Great advice.
Yeah,
thank you.
This is awesome.
This is a great conversation. I really appreciate, Jennifer, you've walked us through the importance and the excitement and the potential of podcasting, but there's so much more to this conversation with respect to become an expert, become a trusted source of information, consistently create content. This is part of your job. Entrepreneurship is hard. We covered a lot of ground today, which I think is really useful. And I'm grateful that we got to spend this time with you.
Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I love your energy. Both of you guys are amazing. And yeah, you guys are amazing hosts. And I'm glad you guys didn't quit. You guys are 4 years in going strong. And that's amazing. I don't think a lot of people understand that podcasting is a journey, and I'm glad you guys are in this journey. So yeah, thank you.
So tell people where they can find you in case they're interested and want to know more. Where can people find you?
Definitely. You could find me on my socials, which would be Instagram. It's my.deity, and my website is mydeity.com. If you were to have a podcast, I would audit that completely for free, and we could see if we can work together. If not, no worries. I'd love to give value regardless.
Nice. Awesome. Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Jennifer.
Thank you.
This podcast was brought to you by Primal Health Coach Institute. To learn more about how to become a successful health coach, get in touch with us by visiting primalhealthcoach.com/call. Or if you're already a successful health coach, practitioner, influencer, or thought leader with a thriving business and an interesting story, we'd love to hear from you. Connect with us at hello@primalhealthcoach.com and let us know why we need to interview you for Health Coach Radio. Thanks for listening.